We're here with JD Wade of JD Wade fame, at JD Wade. So we met on Twitter a little while back, amazing the power of Twitter.
Yes, it's wonderful for connections and things. Yep.
It really is. And so home is in St. Louis, and you work for?
I work for Horizons Consulting. We're a Microsoft Gold certified partner in the St. Louis, Kansas City area primarily.
Awesome.
Focusing around the collaboration tools from Microsoft, so Exchange, OCS, and SharePoint.
OCS and SharePoint. I want to talk about OCS a little later, but you were just mentioning a minute ago before we started the recording that you really get into the infrastructure and of your deployments in your systems. And so 2010 has a lot of new requirements around that.
Yes.
So what are some things that you're kind of hearing around there? What's it going to do? How's it going to impact you on a daily basis with what you're working on?
So it's going to be starting to enhance the conversations we're having with clients. We've got to start understanding. I've already noticed some differences between, okay, if you deploy 2010 on 2008, you can do certain things, but there's only functionality enabled on server R2. Same thing with SQL. There are some functionality in 2008, but R2 it gets additional functionality.
Right.
So not only are we going to have to understand the new infrastructure requirements around 2010, but also around the base platforms it runs on.
It's interesting how the underlying OS enables or disables features up inside of the SharePoint app itself.
Yes. And so I want to dig into that a little bit more and understand what some of those requirements are. Got to be able to help either your company or your client understand, do we have to make sure we're on those platforms for some of the things we want to enable.
Right. Now, of the customers you've worked with over the past year or two, and as you keep up with them, do they have 2010 on their radar?
They do have 2010 on the radar. We're working with a couple customers right now who are looking to do that. One primarily on the social aspects, so around my sites and those types of things. They've got a lot of research scientists, so they're looking to globally. So they're looking to start enabling those people to connect even more, to share information, and hopefully connect with someone they're not regularly talking to, maybe someone around the world.
Right.
The other customer has a global deployment of SharePoint. And so a lot of the new functionality around offline document cache, SharePoint workspaces, all of that enables us to finally push out SharePoint globally in situations where we have a lot of very slow network links.
Right. Some really exciting stuff there. So then up inside of the app a little bit more, not necessarily down in the foundation, but what are some other things you've seen this week? Or I know you've been looking at 2010 before we even got here, but you know, we're still all seeing new stuff. Every time they crack a different session open. But what's some other neat stuff you're seeing? Yeah,
so for me, a couple of the neat stuff are the service applications. So that really makes it an enterprise class solution. I can finally delegate out pieces to the appropriate people, which I couldn't do with the shared services provider.
That's right.
I can mix and match as I need to. I love things like the management metadata service, where I can start enterprise-wide managing content types, taxonomy, terms.
Yep. No more of these site lists that you have to do in every different collection.
Exactly. It's beautiful. And then I'm really excited about the performance point stuff. Again, my focus is infrastructure, but I usually work alongside the developers in that. One, it's just easier for me to get it set up and deployed now. You still have Kerberos and those things to do with it, as you normally do with any BI solution.
Sure.
But even what the developers can crank out on the dashboard, they can do it a lot faster, and they can get a lot more things done without having to do the monotonous work they had to do in order to develop those BI solutions.
Well, the other thing I saw that was neat around that performance point stuff is now a lot of that data and the stuff that drives it are just stored in good old SharePoint lists. I love SharePoint lists.
And I saw in the migration session today that all the permissions are SharePoint based. So you get rid of that idea of having separate performance point permissions as well to manage.
Very nice.
The one
Actually, a unified app.
Yes, it's wonderful. The only thing I did notice, though, is there's a lot of talk around claims-based authentication. Performance Point 2010 will not support claims-based auth out the door. The reason is because of the Click Once dashboard. They haven't been able to get it up to date. The statement made in the session is it might be fixed in SP1. So we'll look there. So there is still hope that before version next, we will be able to take performance point web applications to claims-based auth.
That would be nice. It would be nice to see how, I know in some of the earlier builds, the claims-based auth was a little sketchy. And so...
It still is. I went to that session. It's still a little nebulous. Right now, Beta 2 only supports claims-based auth for FBA. You can't test it with Windows auth yet. So we'll see what makes the end build. Exactly. Who knows? All right, so like I said, we met on the Twitter. Somebody wants to track you down and find you. Of course, I'll put it on the screen when we post all this, but you are? I'm at JD Wade. Yeah, JD Wade. It's just that easy. All right, hey, thanks for taking some time to talk. I appreciate the time. Thanks.